The old cabin had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember, perched on the edge of the dense forest, its wooden frame sagged under the weight of decades of neglect. The locals in the nearby town avoided it, claiming that something in those woods wasn't right, but for Daniel, the story was just that, a story. A good ghost tale meant to keep children from wandering too far from home. Daniel was an avid hiker, drawn to the wilderness as a means of escape from the chaos of daily life. He'd explored almost every trail in the region, except for the one that led to the cabin. It was a gloomy autumn afternoon when he finally decided to make the trek. The sky was overcast, and a chill clung to the air as he walked deeper into the forest, his footsteps muffled by the thick layer of fallen leaves. The path twisted and turned, growing narrower and more overgrown with each step. As he moved forward, the trees seemed to close in around him, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The usual sounds of the forest, the chirping of birds, the rustling of small animals in the underbrush, had faded into an eerie silence. Only the sound of his breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot remained. When the cabin finally came into view, Daniel felt an unexpected wave of unease wash over him. The structure was more dilapidated than he had imagined, with broken windows and a door hanging off its hinges. He hesitated for a moment, but curiosity got the better of him. He crossed the threshold into the darkened interior, his boots echoing on the wooden floorboards. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp wood and rot. The room was empty except for an old tattered chair in the corner and a fireplace filled with ash. Daniel shivered, though the cold wasn't what caused it. Something about the place felt wrong, as if he were intruding on something that wasn't meant to be disturbed. He moved cautiously through the cabin, stepping over debris. He tried to ignore the growing sense of dread that gnawed at his gut. As he reached the back of the room, he noticed a door slightly ajar, leading down to what must have been a cellar. A strange compulsion urged him to descend, to uncover whatever secrets lay below. The stairs creaked ominously under his weight as he descended into the darkness. The air grew colder, and the smell of decay intensified. His flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing shelves lined with jars filled with strange, unidentifiable substances. At the far end of the cellar, he saw a figure huddled in the corner, motionless. Daniel froze, his heart pounding in his chest. The figure was human, or had been at some point, but it was twisted and deformed, its skin pale and waxy. Its eyes were wide open, staring blankly into the darkness. He took a step back, horrified, when the figure's head suddenly snapped towards him, its eyes locking onto his. A cold wave of fear crashed over him. He realized those eyes were not blank, they were watching him. He turned to run, but something cold and clammy grabbed his ankle, pulling him down. Daniel screamed, kicking frantically, but the grip was unyielding. He managed to wrench free, scrambling up the stairs and bursting out of the cellar. As he fled the cabin, he could feel them, the watchers following him, their cold eyes piercing through the darkness. The forest around him seemed to close in, the trees whispering in voices too low to understand. He ran, branches clawing at his face and arms, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He didn't stop until he reached the edge of the forest, collapsing in exhaustion. When he looked back, the forest was still, the cabin hidden behind the trees. But he knew they were still watching, waiting for him to return. He never went back to the woods, but even in the safety of his home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of shadow, sent him into a panic. The watchers had marked him, and he knew deep down that they would come for him eventually. He would never escape their gaze. The fear of that final moment when they would claim him was a constant, suffocating presence, and it was only a matter of time.